Welcome to my Introduction to Networking course, also known as ITN. This is the version 7 material preparing learners for the Cisco CCNA 200-301. Cisco curriculum, everything is owned and copyrighted by them. So let's talk about the command structure. As we issue commands, we should have a prompt. That will be like the switch and whatever mode we're in. Next will be the command. There should be a space, and there will be either a keyword or an argument. Again, spacing is important, but you need to be careful. If you do 2 spaces, for example, it will think the second space is part of the argument. So the command line is pretty strict on how we do certain things. So basic syntax would be, if it's bold, it's required. If it's italicized, it may not be. Some are going to be optional, some may not. So for example, if we are looking at a help section, ping space, notice ping is in bold, IP address is not, and it's italicized. It's letting us know that ping is the command and that's the argument. If we do switch port security aging, this is an actual printout of the command set. Notice we have static, we have time that is not italicized and not bolded, and then we have type, and then type would be either absolute or inactive. So part of this is learning how we could decode our command line. This is an example of a multi-argument command, where these are singular argument commands. iOS does have a nice help feature. If you do a question mark, it will print out the commands. If you already have part of a command written and you do question mark, it will be the next part of the command. If you fat finger something, or if you try to issue a command at the wrong level, you will actually get an invalid input. I have already prepared videos and linked them as well in the help, or in the chat. So again, some of these videos you can watch later. So hotkeys and shortcuts. You don't always have to type out the entire command. To go from the privilege exec to configuration is configure terminal, or conf t. However, if there could be multiple commands with the same amount of letters, you'll get an ambiguous command. Here we have router, and we're issuing a con command. Well, there are 2 commands that start with con, configure and connect. So this is ambiguous. It doesn't know which one you're trying to do. If you did conf, it would know it's configure. If you did con, it would know that you're typing in connect. So it really just depends. So there's a few other tips. Things like typing out a command. You can hit tab and it will actually complete out the rest of the command, assuming it's not ambiguous. Backspace will erase your character. You can move the cursor up and down characters by left arrow, right arrow, up arrow. Up arrow actually will show you the history, and you can actually go up multiple commands that you previously typed. Other shortcuts are things like Control-Z, which we've already talked about. Control-C, when in a configuration mode, will end the configuration mode and kick you back out to the privilege exec mode. Control-Shift-6 will be an all-purpose break sequence, so that you can break up or kill like a DNS lookup or a traceroute or a ping if any of them get stuck. Spacebar again, if we have a multi-screen help, spacebar will show next screen. Enter hits them one at a time, one line at a time. So again, just some of this is going to be hit and miss while we are practicing our different commands. Again, we've done videos on the shortcut keys. We have a packet tracer file as well. and we have one to do basic navigation. So let's go ahead, let's jump directly into how we can configure the devices now, not just look at navigation. So again, most of the configuration is going to be done at the global configuration mode. So how do we get there? We log into the device, we go from the user exec mode, type enable, that gets us to our privileged exec mode. That would be the £. From there, we got to get to our global configuration mode. So conf t or configure terminal, hit enter. That lets us logging into the configuration mode. So we need to, first thing we're going to do is probably name the device. That way it's not just called switch or router. We need to give it a meaningful name. So when we are naming devices, it has to start with a letter, has no spaces, and it must end with a letter or a digit. Only letters, digits, and dashes can be present, and it can be between 1 and 64 characters in length. We can also set passwords. Most of the time in the Cisco curriculum, we are using Cisco or class. However, these are really weak passwords, so we need to not use them in the real world. So some good password guidelines is use passwords that are greater than 8 characters in length, combination of uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and numbers. Avoid using the same password for all devices. Avoid using passwords that are not encrypted on the device if we are assuming we're using passwords for network devices, but I mean for this example that's kind of what we're doing. Don't use commonly guessed words either. So again, we're talking about how to best use the information that we do have. So if we all know that a common password is password, we probably want to steer clear of it. So let's talk how do we configure passwords. Well, we can configure a plain text password by using the command password and then the password we want to set. However, this is not very secure. So here we have we're configuring a basic password for the Align Console 0. We set the password to Cisco. We set it to login. We can, when we go to actually connect, this is going to be the password we connect with. We have the ability to also configure the terminal with a password as well. We would do enable, and then we would either do password or secret, and then the password. If we do the word password here, it's a plain text password. If we do the word secret, it will actually hash our password. If we're talking how to configure a switch, we also have a virtual terminal, so we also want to set our passwords for our virtual terminal. Again, you go to that line, you type in the password, space, whatever password you want, and so forth. So we talked about encrypting passwords. Here we actually have encrypted passwords. Even though we did not encrypt the passwords, we used the command password, and then we did Cisco, for example. Well, why are these hashed values? They're hashed values because we did a password encryption service that actually turned on encryption for all passwords. So that makes these passwords hashed. Even though we didn't hash them to begin with, this service does it for us. So now that we talked about naming and passwords, let's talk about how to set a banner. When you log into the device, here is a message. How do we set that message? We do that by typing banner, MOTD, a special character, type the message, end with the same special character. That allows us to set our messages. And this should be some form of legal message saying authorized personnel only or something of that nature. The pound signs here are delimiter factors or delimiter characters. They don't have to be pound, but whatever you start with, you need to end with. Again, there's a video covering that, which has already been posted. And that is it for this lecture. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Thank you.